Welcome everyone. We're going to be working with Yin Yoga next. So this is a very slow, mindful practice about accessing the joints and the ligaments and tendons around the joints. So it's a very slow practice where we hold poses. We're going to hold for a maximum of 3 minutes. You're welcome, as it's a recording, to pause and stay a little bit longer, those of you that are used to this practice. If you've not done it before, it's an ideal beginner's practice, but I would stick with the 3 minutes, and you're very welcome to come out a little bit sooner too if you wish. You do need a little bit of equipment, or you may need some props in Yin. Some people like to use them, I do. You may want a couple of bricks if you have some. If not, some books, so you combine some books together. Also, we use a bolster. Some of you may have these bolsters filled with buckwheat or foam, and these are also quite nice to fold forward onto. If you haven't got a bolster, big pile of cushions will do, or some rolled up beach towels are also quite nice. You might want to roll a few round each other, put them in a pillowcase. So have all of that ready. Again, you can pause, get all that ready, and come back to practice. So we're going to start with a little bit of mindfulness, a couple of minutes here. So you may want a cushion to sit up onto, something to prop yourself up. If you're happy kneeling, doing so. I'm going to sit with my legs crossed over onto a cushion. So we're just going to take a few minutes here. So settling, again, you're very welcome to sit up against the wall if that helps you to sort of prop and lift the spine. Just bringing the shoulder blades back and down, and just sense the sit bones dropping down into the earth. And let's just take these moments. So you're welcome to close your eyes here and just sink into the body. Let's move out of that headspace, that busy, perhaps, headspace. And just settle into what's here, what we can sense. So Yin is a very feeling practice. So I want you to just feel the spine here, lifting tall, lifting through the crown of the head, but equally the sit bones drawing down into the earth, helping us to become more grounded, sensing that connection. And then just inviting some softness in. So this is also part of our Yin practice, softening. So even though we're held and we're lifting through the spine, there's a softness in the shoulders, into the hands, down through the legs, and also into the face. Just maybe relaxing the lower jaw. Notice if it's clenching. Just maybe dropping the tongue down from the top of the roof of the mouth. Maybe the mouth opens a little bit. And relaxing around the eyes. A softness here and across the forehead, around the temples. And once we feel steady, tuning into the breath, let's become aware of the in-breath as it comes to you, and the out-breath as you let it go. Noticing the in-breath coming to you, and the out-breath letting go. Keep that going, just noticing. And we don't necessarily want to change the breath here, just seeing how it is. And Yin again, as opposed to the Yang side of yoga, that very busy, active, warm side. The Yin is the softer, more receiving, the cooling practice. And we just notice. Notice how we are with stillness. For some of us, this may be a challenge in itself, just being still. You can noticing quietness. And we're accepting whatever comes in. We're doing the best we can to accept what comes in. So there may be lots of different feelings, sensations that we notice along in our practice. And we're just going to allow ourselves this time now in this session to be with whatever comes up for us. Good or bad, we're not labelling necessarily anything as good or bad. So we're releasing judgment. Releasing striving. Releasing the need to do. But inviting in that sense of being here now. As though it's a gift to yourself to just be here. Noticing the in-breath coming to you and the out-breath as you let it go. In-breath coming to you and the out-breath letting go. And perhaps taking the next couple of breaths, the out-breath through the mouth. So breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. And again, in-breath through the nose, out-breath through the mouth. Releasing now any unwanted sensations or thoughts. Just being with the sensation of feeling. So maybe blinking the eyes open here. We're going to bring the palms to the heart center, just very gently, and allowing the head to bow to the heart center and that wisdom that we have there. Again, we're letting the breath come and go. So raising the head, let's take the arms out and gently as we breathe in, raise the arms up. Perhaps the palms touch, and then breathing out, bring the hands back gently to the heart center. Nice. And then again, breathing in, just taking the arms up, turning the palms out and lowering the arms. Just nice and gentle. So let's reverse that and repeat. Breathing in, arms reach up, and breathing out, hands come down to the heart center. And again, breathing in and breathing out. So mindful of how this feels. So we're releasing the need to perform. Let's do one more. Breathing in, arms together, breathing out. We're not bothered what this looks like. We're just enjoying that sensation, noticing that sensation, being present with that movement and the breath together, that union. Okay, so we're going to come to our first pose. As I say, we're going to stay for 3 minutes. So we may need a cushion to sit onto. The next pose is called butterfly, and we're going to take it into butterfly. So you may need your blocks, but you can equally use a bolster and some cushions for this as well. But we're going to come into a forward fold. So we're going to sit up onto the cushion first. So this allows us to bring about this tilt forwards. So for butterfly pose, we bring the soles of the feet together. It's very different from our yang posture, where we would be encouraged to draw the feet in close. Here we're going to take the feet quite far away, so we create more of a diamond shape. And so using your props here, if you feel you need a bit of support for your knees, some people may do maybe one knee, perhaps you need that support, absolutely fine. We want to encourage support because we're here for a long time, so we don't want to be activating muscles that are going to support that knee, because then we we're going to miss out all that joy of getting into the hip joints here, knee joints we'll get into, and also the spine for this pose. So what you can do is use your blocks, and you can prop underneath the thigh rather than the knee itself, and then just see if you can relax into that. So you can use both, you can use your bolster in the same way. This will lift the knees quite high, so again that may be quite nice, and it's also quite nice to bring the hands onto perhaps. Equally, place a cushion underneath, or a couple of cushions, or even books, so just have some kind of propping there. Again, feel free to pause this video at any time if you need to readjust. It's all going a bit quick. So for this, if you're onto a cushion, we want to be right to the edge of it. And for some of you with disc issues, you may actually prefer to stay upright in this pose, or sit up against the wall and actually not go any further. And this is perfectly acceptable. We're still getting into the hip joints here, with that openness through the pelvis and joints. I should also note, for yin, it's equally acceptable to not use any props at all if you feel that you feel safe and secure with that. I'm going to come back to my blocks. Okay, so that first stage is a lot of shuffling about, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of fidgeting, there's a lot of finding our way, and this is what we call finding our edge. So we're finding what feels appropriate. So if we're coming forwards, we don't necessarily have to lengthen the spine. We may want to just initially as we come into it, but we do round the back, hence those of you with disc issues, rounding the back may not be appropriate, so staying upright will be more beneficial for you. But if you feel okay with coming a little bit further here, you can just stay sort of part way with the elbows on the forearms, or we can take the hands down a little bit lower. So find what feels appropriate for you, so not necessarily copying me, but just exploring all different possibilities of what feels right for you. So give yourself that time, and you're finding your edge. There's no rush to find a particular shape that we feel that we must be in. So again, that's very yin-like, to just be with what feels okay right now, and it may be different when we practice and come back to it again. So notice what's here. We're letting the back round, we're even letting the head fold forwards. Maybe if that feels okay through the neck, we're letting the head just come down. And so once we've found our edge, we're into that second principle, or tattva in yin, which is softness. We're inviting softness in here. So as I mentioned, we're switching muscles off. So notice where we may be engaging the muscles. So we can scan from the feet and move our way up through the legs. We're just checking that we've switched the thigh muscles off. And then through the back, just releasing through the core, releasing through the arms and the shoulders, so check in with that if it needs a bit of movement, just very gentle. And then through the neck and the head, so the head's quite heavy here, so it may not be appropriate for all of us to let the head hang. Some of you may want to be part way and perhaps support the head. Nothing wrong with changing a little bit, but just finding that shape. So then we can move into that third principle of holding and being. And so coming back to the breath, as though it's an anchor now to our attention. The breath coming to you as you breathe in, and releasing as you breathe out. And you may find that there's a little bit of release, so you soften more perhaps. It may be that it becomes too much. And so we're noticing between what becomes painful. As with any yoga practice, we come out of that, we back off from that space, we don't push into it. But if there's a strong sensation, And just seeing how we react to that. Notice. Do we want to rush out of it? How does it feel to linger with that challenge, shall we say? Still just letting the breath come and go. Maybe the eyes are closed, or we're fixed on a point, a drishti. Just a soft focus. I'm not having to deepen the breath, but you may notice the breath slows down just in that stillness. Again, just all part of noticing. And then when we come out of the pose, we're just going to take 3 breaths. And so this is our sort of preparation time. We start to allow some movement. And after those 3 breaths, we start to slowly come back out of the pose, just gradually, steadily. And we can remove the props. And we may want to just bring the feet in, just give them a hand, hold on to the legs there. When we release from a pose, it's nice also to notice how that feels as well, and that's also an important part of our practice. So we may just want to take in the opposite direction, stay against the wall if you're against the wall, but a little bit of movement here is also quite nice. And we're now moving into what we call a rebound, or notice a rebound, or the echo of where we've just been. How that feels. Is it a relief to come out? Could we have stayed longer? Is there a tightness? Is there openness in the body? How does that feel? And nothing is right or wrong. It's all just noticing and being. Good. So we allow ourselves 30 seconds to a minute really in this rebound space. Good. Okay, so then we're going to come into another forward fold. So again, you can stay seated against the wall and still accessing the hips, but we're going to take it into what's called dragonfly pose. So maybe I'll face forward for this one. And so we take the feet a bit wider again. Now, it's also still an option to stay seated on a cushion, just to the edge of the cushion. So again, maybe having more of our props nearby, cushions. But if you have bricks, again, just being mindful of the knees. As we take this forwards, there will be a deep reach through the back of the knees, through the hamstrings. So for some, that may be quite strong. We don't have to take the feet too wide. They don't have to be very dynamic and as far stretched out as possible at all. It can just be a very soft sort of V shape, just slightly wider than the hips. And we let the feet just move in or out. It's just sort of noticing how that feels in the hips as well. So there's a softness here. You may want to just try coming forwards and feeling into that, or maybe having some props nearby so that when you get into that forward fold, you can then bring in your props in if you need. As I say, staying upright here, absolutely fine, with props, without props, staying with this, okay, for that 3-minute hold. But find your edge. Now, you could also use your cushions or your bolster for this forward fold in front of you. Okay, so what can be quite nice for those of you that's just a slight tilt forwards is your bolster in front and you lean your chest into it. Okay, so we want to let the head relax so it can just come onto the bolster, side or in front. Okay, so that also can be quite nice. Those of us that really like our forward folds, so some of us that our hips just really enjoy that forward sensation. Others, back bends are what we enjoy, or what the body tends to just mould into as well. Each of us are uniquely different, so celebrate that, be happy with that. It's not good or bad again, but if you feel that you can come forwards, it feels okay, we're checking in, we feel safe, we're happy to stay here, It may not be that you come all the way down, so again, a little bit of propping, more cushions, raise the body a little bit. Also, another way is just to bring the elbows onto the bolster. So feel free to play around with that. We're not having to lift the spine, activate muscles. We want to soften and round, so maybe the bolster comes forwards a little bit. So play around with that. Again, it doesn't have to look exactly as I'm showing you, but I'm hopefully giving you lots of different varieties, different ways of working, so that then you can choose what feels right in your body. So perhaps take a moment, checking in that where you are feels safe, feels okay. There may be areas that are challenging, but you're at your edge. And so that edge is just almost knocking at the door of the really full reach. Just at that point that we're okay to stay and hold. So the 3-minute timer set. Softening once again. That sense of acceptance here also that this is where we're going to be. This is where we're staying. This is where we're holding. And observing the breath coming and going. Checking in with feelings. So not the thoughts around this. This also may occur that the mind comes into this and thinks about what we're doing, thinks about whether we should do more. See if we can release those thoughts, just let them float by, let them move on, and be with the feeling. So there may be emotions associated with different shapes. As we hold them, maybe through the hips, there's a feeling of tightness, maybe through the back, there's a sensation of tightness. Or openness. What is it that's here? Just that inquisitive or gentle inquisitive mind, that there's no end goal, but there's just feelings and there's sensations to watch over. As though the whole body is a field of sensations and you're just walking through that, noticing. And the breath coming and going, coming and going, gentle, soft and quiet. And so we come to those last 3 breaths. So we're just sending that message to the nervous system that we're going to start moving. But we've been here for a few minutes, so give yourself some time. Maybe visualize the body moving before it actually does. And then we can just gently press into props, the floor, come up gradually and slowly. Moving any props out of the way, and we can also lift the legs one at a time. Bring those knees in, because you may feel it across the back of the knees. Notice where, again, we're feeling this as we move into the echo. So from up forward fold again, we're just going to bring the hands back, just a gentle lean, and we may want to even just stay with stillness again, or we may want to take it into that twist. Just very slow, what we call windscreen wiper movement. On the slowest of settings. So there's no rush. It's just that sense of ease from the pose. How does this feel now? Good. Okay. So we're going to move into our next pose, which is now going to be a back bend after those forward folds. And again, we're holding. So we're going to come into Sphinx pose, with the possibility of moving into what's called seal pose. So you may want perhaps a brick in front of you. There are, or maybe some of you that want to use your bolster for this. So when we come on to lying onto our front here, we've got the feet sort of quite close together, sort of hip distance maybe, but relaxed. And so Sphinx pose may start very low for some, it may stay low for some of you. It may just be into the hands one on top of the other and the forehead resting, and that may be enough of where you want to be. Just lying on your front can be quite a strong back bend for those of you, and any sort of tightness in the lower back. We can come up a little bit higher where we're bringing the elbows underneath the shoulders, but again this can be modified. It may be that you actually want to take the hands a little bit further, or the elbows a little bit further forward, so it does lower the body, and so that crease here, this is where we're going to reach into this space as well as along the front of the hips. But that compression there may be different for each of us. It may feel different for each of us. So maybe being high up here is too high or quite high, and past our edge. So notice what that feels like. For some of you, if you feel happier coming a little bit higher, or you need a bit of propping, you can use your bolster underneath the lower ribs. Okay, so notice again that crease. Let's move that round. And then we can bring the elbows down, and then we're just releasing the shoulders a little bit more here as well. So that may feel quite nice for some of you, but notice this position here. It's not under the hips, it's under the lower ribs. Okay, so then we should be able to bring the forearms down if we're using the prop. So that we feel an openness through the front of the hips here. This is the target area. So you can play around with the feet, if you're staying with your bolster or not, you're changing this. You may want to bring your feet closer together. What also can feel quite nice is taking the feet quite wide, but that may increase this fold in the lower back. So check in where that is. So you play around with all these different possibilities. What also can be quite nice, I'm going to stay on my bolster, might want to come off that if it's too much, not for everybody, is a bit of support for the head. So if you're happy to take your head forwards, again it might not be for everybody, it may be that you just take the head on a little bit of a slant. You will have to engage the neck muscles for that, but just finding softness into the face is fine. But if you really are happy to release, or your neck does need some support, any issues there, then just let the forehead come down. And let's set the timer. So once you've played around, you may still be fidgeting a little bit, but that is just part of finding your edge first. And then softening, just releasing, feeling as though gravity wants to draw you down towards the mat, and you're just letting that take hold. You're not using your muscles to push against it, you're just staying with that shape. And as you stay with that shape, you're just letting the breath come and go. Notice if there may be resistance, which does come up in Yin. A resistance to being still, a resistance to holding, a resistance to being with the body, being with ourselves. It's not always an easy thing to do. But the more we become familiar with this, the more accessible it becomes, the more it builds our resilience. The less perhaps we want to run away from difficult situations. difficult emotions, what we might label as difficult. But see if we can just release that, and it is just a feeling, a sensation. I'm not saying this is easy, but we're noticing. And we're learning about ourselves, getting to that true self. It may not always be a pretty picture, perhaps, but we can learn from this. Just aware of that field of sensations in the body. So there's an option as we move towards the last part of this, perhaps holding a little bit longer as you are in this shape, or releasing down fully. The option for some of you to come into what we call seal pose, which is going to lift us a little bit higher. So if this is your maximum, then I'd recommend staying where you are, being responsible, checking in the body feels safe. But we can also take it into seal where the hands go a little bit wider. We just start to prop up a little bit through the arms. So it's going to increase that fold in the lower back, open out through the front of the hips and across through the belly, a little bit through the chest. We just perhaps stay for another minute, maybe 30 seconds, maybe enough. Again, we can just release the head forward slightly. Find that space that feels appropriate, that makes sense to you. But you can still soften. Obviously the arm muscles do engage a little bit here, but our target area is the lower back. Staying with this, letting the breath come and go. Notice what's happening with the breath. If there's a resistance where we're holding the breath, or the breath speeds up, that we may have just gone past our edge, that may be an indication there. So we change, we come down. Okay, so releasing, bringing the hands, the elbows down. I'm going to just release the bolster and coming all the way down. So we're placing the hands one on top of the other, forehead onto the back of the hands. And what also could be quite nice here is bending the knees, lifting the feet from the floor, and just again taking that rocking movement, nice and slow, side to side. In your rebound space, the echo. Noticing how that feels in the lower back, through the hips. Then when we release, bring the feet down. And we're just going to gently push up to table pose, to all fours. We're just going to take a kneeling position for a moment. We're moving into our next shape, which again is coming to a forward fold, and it's the lovely child pose. It's one of my favourites. We're going to take it into a wide knee child pose. So just mindful of knee issues here. What we can do is place cushions behind the knees as well, if we're not happy with that full extension through the knees. We're going to be using props here, so get your cushions, your towels, rolled up towels if you haven't got a bolster, and we're going to place this in front of us. We're going to fold the body over the bolster. We want to keep the hips low. Some of you may find that coming all the way down to the bolster is a little bit too much, so you can place something underneath. We'll have many more cushions. We're going to bring the chest onto the bolster. Okay, take the head to one side and the hands down. Okay, so check in. Maybe that actually you're okay coming down a little bit lower. Some of you may not want to use any props at all. Absolutely fine. Okay, but Again, getting on the inner thighs, the hips, that openness in the hips, which may be a tight space for some of us. So we can turn the head to one side and then just find that space to release. Closing the eyes. Setting the timer here now. Another 3 minutes. Just letting yourself relax and release forwards. Sensing the back of the body. Child pose can be a very restful, soothing, almost nurturing pose as well, if we're feeling in need of that space for self-care. I always find that child pose is that one to really take us into that softness, that space. We can really release into gravity here. If there are those of you not happy with the knee situation, could actually lie onto your back and bring the knees in. You can hold on along the back of the knees, maybe take them a little bit wider if that feels okay, and just gently bring the knees in. Noticing the in and out of the breath, like coming and going. Noticing the weight of the body on the floor. And choosing to listen to the sounds in the body. Maybe we hear the sound of the breath to follow it, as well as the movements. Maybe we can hear the heartbeat. Maybe there's sounds around us and they're just coming to us. We're not having to do anything. Listening is a really delightful way of being mindful. We're not judging those sounds as good or bad. We're just letting them come and go. And so we're going to take our last 3 breaths here. And as we start to come out of the pose slowly, we're just shifting the hands in towards the knees and just pushing into the ground and coming up slowly, slowly, slowly to that kneeling position. Again, we just bring the knees in, so just placing any bolsters, any items that you've used out of the way. So what can be quite nice is coming back to that tabletop position. You might want to do a little bit of a cat stretch. So you've rounded the back in cat, so what might be quite nice is just allowing that dip gently of the heart centre, so nothing too strong, just a little bit of a fluid movement through the spine, following the breath. The whole of the breath occur, the whole of the in-breath, the whole of the out-breath. Out-breath as you round the back. In-breath as you let the heart centre just melt forwards. Okay. So as we've released from those, we're going to come down to lying onto the mat. And so we're going to take it into a back bend again. And what we call supported bridge pose. So for this we're going to be lying back. Again, you might want to watch this first and then come into it. And you may want props. You may want your books, a couple of books, a brick if you have one. You can also use your bolster for this. I'm going to have that ready. Okay, so we come to lying onto the mat, so just rolling yourself down slowly, gently bringing the back onto the mat, and then just bring the feet in. So for bridge in Hatha, we would be lifting the spine, activating the muscles. So we can do that to a certain degree just to get into the pose. But we're going to use a bit of support underneath the hips and the pelvis. So what we can do is use our brick or books. So we press into the feet and we gently lift and we're sliding the brick underneath. Now we just want to be careful that we're not placing this support in the lower back. Okay, we want the back to have freedom here to move. So we want the pelvis to be supported, so that sort of bony part just above, just the sort of the buttocks there. So we want to feel also that space where the hip bones are at the front here, that the prop is right behind. So check in with that. And it may be that you stay with this, maybe just let the arms move outwards. And so whichever prop you're using, for some of you this may feel too high actually, so if you've got books, just have a few less, or put a cushion underneath. You can change the setting, you can have the brick on its side to come up a little bit higher. That also may feel quite nice for some of you. Each of us very different, so some of us sort of find that joy in being a little bit higher, and others that joy is a little bit lower. So it doesn't matter which it is, it's just what feels more sensible or makes sense rather for your body. So we can come into this position. If you're going to use your bolsters, maybe come up onto your toes a little bit so you create space, and we bring the bolster in. Okay. So I'm going to stay onto the bolster for this, but it does not mean that you have to at all. So stay with the bricks, the books, and the cushions that you're using. And it may be that we feel okay with releasing the legs a little bit, maybe try one at a time. See how that feels to release. So this is going to reach across the front of the hips, which can be quite a tight area. There's hip flexors across here, may be quite tight for some of us. Well, the hip joint feels a bit tight. So if it feels okay, we can release. Now we also want to check in with the neck here when we've taken the legs. We've not got that support in the lower back, so check in with how that feels as well. So if it feels too strong, takes a bit of pressure into the head and neck, then just bring the feet in. Okay, and stay with that for your 3 minutes. Letting the breath come and go. It may be that you just take a couple of breaths, changing, not necessarily a regular movement, but just checking in. So we want to hold, we want to be in a space where we can be still. Maybe again closing the eyes. What may also be an option for some is taking the arms overhead. So start to take it into the upper body a little bit more as well. Maybe that feels okay, maybe it doesn't. Maybe take the arms out to the side perhaps. Just make sure where you're making contact with the floor or the props that you can really release into that. Notice if you're holding anywhere in the body, in the face, through the shoulders. Down to the feet and the toes even, the fingertips. The whole body finding softness and releasing to gravity, wanting to draw you down. Stay with the breath coming and going.
whole body, a field of sensations. So we're coming to the last 3 breaths now. And so if you have straighten the legs out, maybe moving those first and bringing your feet in, so that you have support that you can press into your feet when you're ready. Also, if you've taken the arms overhead, I'd suggest bringing those back down alongside the body. And we're just pressing into the feet so we can remove the prop and gently lowering the spine down to the floor, all the way down now. And so what may feel nice here may be different for each of you. It may be that some of you feel more inclined intuitively to want to just straighten your legs down, maybe take it into a full stretch, arms overhead. Or also, what I find a lot of people like to do is bring the knees into the chest after that sort of openness through the hips. You may want to hug and maybe just a little roll side to side, or maybe just holding and staying in stillness is more appropriate. So as you move into that echo, just what feels right for you. So we're releasing down. So our next movement, next poses, is our twist. This is what we're going to finish with. So we're going to do just 2 minutes to each side as opposed to 3. Now our twist, again, I'll show you lots of different options for this. And again, choosing what feels right for you. So you may want a bolster, you may want bricks nearby, some propping, some cushions. So we start by just taking the arms just sort of slightly lower than the shoulders, so not necessarily straight out and active, but just nice and soft. But we want to release the shoulder blades down to the floor. So from here, we've got the feet just a little bit apart, maybe hip distance, and then we're just testing this out. So we're going to take the knees over to one side, doesn't really matter which side we start with, and then we're just checking here if we need a bit of propping. Now some of you may be happy just holding that. I notice my knee doesn't come all the way down, so I place a prop underneath. Okay, and this may be your twist, this may be your full range. We want to check that the opposite shoulder blade stays down so that we don't roll the body over, we keep it down to the mat. Okay, so we may find then that top knee feels comfortable to bring it across. So remember, we are holding here, so it may be that you feel okay for a few breaths in one position, but staying a bit longer may not be. So you've got to sort of find that space that feels okay. So maybe one knee on top of the other comes down. It may be for some of you that top knee is still lifting, so you can place the brick in between the knees as well. We want to be able to relax through the side of the thigh here to get into the hip joint. So we check that that's happening. Another option is to bring that top knee across. It can lay on top of the lower knee, but it may be again that knee doesn't come down, so you can bring your hand across, not necessarily pushing it, but just the weight maybe of the hand just resting there draws it down, and a brick underneath the knee. So that also can be quite nice. It may be an option for some of you to tuck the foot underneath the knee, and again that just sort of holds the foot in place almost, so that you can relax. We check in that this opposite shoulder blade is down. Good. Another option is to simply bring both knees over to your bolster. Okay, so you have your bolster to one side, the side that you're going to move towards, and you just simply rest the knees. So that can also be really nice. So we soften through that side that we've moved the knees towards, however that looks. And then it may be that we want to take this opposite arm across. So if we, for instance, taken the knees to the left, The right arm, the opposite side, may want to come a little bit higher. It may want to just stay out to the side, or just explore as though it's sort of a clock face, that we're just taking the arm up towards 12, seeing how that happens, or what happens rather. It may be that your elbow lifts, so we want to discourage that if we can. We just want the whole of the arms supported, so find that space. Now it may be that you turn the head, maybe you keep it in the centre and the eyes closed, or you turn the head in the same direction as the knees. It's a little bit more yin-like, but some people do like to take the head in the opposite direction as well. But again, as long as we're not holding through the neck muscles to do that. So wherever you are that feels free to release the weight of the head. And simply closing the eyes, staying for 2 minutes. Notice where you may be holding, just let go. See if you can release, switch the muscles off and soften. Invite the softness in, welcome it. Good, so our last 3 breaths. Then we do start to move. I'd suggest moving the arm first. If you have taken the arm overhead, just bring it back. And then start to uncross the legs. If you cross them over, just gently come back. And so again, what you may want to do here, as before, is straighten the legs out, take it into a full stretch, or bring the knees into the chest, once again, with stillness or movement. So wherever you need to be for that echo space, rebound, is what's appropriate for you. You might want to do both, which is absolutely fine. It's just very gentle, slow movements. Nothing too dynamic. So we prepare for the other side, just being mindful that it may be very different from one side to the other, through the hip joints, through the spine, through the side body, through the shoulders. So we're mindful of that, and we come to the next side anew. So we might want to have all the props ready again to this side, just in case we want to change it up a little bit. So the arms are again just lower than your shoulders, and we just take the knees over to the side, opposite side now, and we check in. How does this feel? You know, am I able to hold this and stay with this, or is there going to be a little bit of shaking through that top knee or leg to hold? So seeing what props we may need to use to just change that up. Again, if there's space between the knees, just place something there to close that gap. Use your bolster to rest the knees onto. I might take it a bit stronger this side personally, so I'm going to cross the leg over and hold on, and then again we can explore raising the arm up as long as the shoulder blade stays down, and we feel a nice openness through the chest. Just check in where we want to move the head. A little fidget if you need to, don't be afraid to move. That's that first part, you're giving yourself that space to explore your edge. And then softening, 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 softening. Maybe the out breath just gives you that space to release. Good. So coming to the last 3 breaths now. Doesn't have to be deep breaths, just your natural pace. And so again, if you're taking the arm over, maybe moving that first. The knees are together, we're gently rolling back to put the spine onto the mat. How does that feel? We may even want to just stay in stillness with the knees bent at the centre. So straightening the legs again is an option, feels good. Or bringing the knees in feels good. Just move into that echo space freely. No need to feel that one option is better than the other. It's just what feels right again, what makes sense to you right now. Good. And we're just going to finish with a short shavasana. What you may like to do for this is place some cushions, rolled up towel behind the knees. So we can place the bolsters to support the legs. You may want to rest the hands onto the belly or out to the side. And closing the eyes now, and let's just take some slightly deeper breaths here, some cleansing breaths. So we're taking a slow breath in through the nose, opening the mouth and out through the mouth. And then repeating 2 more. And 1 more. Gently closing the eyes, just let yourself rest still. Let the body remain here. Gravity taking hold. And so scanning through the body as you rest here now, focus on the crown of the head, working your way down the body, inviting everything to relax and release. Allow the face to soften, the jaw, cheeks, tongue, the neck, the shoulders, the arms, the hands, down through to the fingers and the fingertips. Allow a softening, relaxation in the upper back and chest, the mid-back and the belly, the pelvis and the lower back. Feel the hips, the pelvis on the ground, held. Relaxing the legs, the knees, shins, calves, down to the ankles and feet. And as you allow the breath to just come and go, to rise and fall, observe the state of relaxation you've created. Simply aware of the whole body relaxed and the breath coming and going.
feeling free to linger here a little bit longer. If you'll feel ready to start to gently move out of the pose, just by bringing the movement gently in. So wiggling the fingers and the toes. Maybe letting the head roll side to side gently. Blinking the eyes open. Rolling over onto your side. Maybe rolling over onto your left side. And gently supporting yourself up to a seated position. Just take a few moments there again, notice. Hopefully this practice has brought you some sense of being grounded, but also some rejuvenation, revitalizing the joints and the tight parts in the body, perhaps for some of us. All that sense of openness as well that Yin can bring us, and quietness. So thank you for your practice. Let's bring the palms together. Namaste. Thank you, thank you, thank you.